This happened a few months ago. I'm a long-haul truck driver. I spend most of my nights out on the road, trying to earn enough to keep my family's heads above water. My wife and 2 kids rely on me to bring home what I can. It's hard work, and I've been doing this for over a decade now. I've seen a lot on those dark highways, but there are 3 encounters that still leave me feeling uneasy. I can't shake them off. The first one was a foggy night. I pulled into a truck stop, tired after hours on the road. The lights flickered above me, casting long shadows. I stepped out of my cab to fill my tank. The mist rolled in thick, making it hard to see. Just then, a man in a battered pickup truck approached. His eyes seemed vacant. He asked for directions, but his voice was strange. I felt a chill creep up my spine. I didn't know what to do. I waved him off, thinking he was just another lost traveler. In the weeks that followed, I started to notice more truckers giving off that same odd vibe. One night, I was at a lonely station, refueling. A fellow driver struck up a conversation. He started telling ghost stories about the roads. He said he once saw a figure on the side of the road that vanished when he looked again. I laughed it off, but the chills stayed with me. I thought it was just the cold, but deep down, I knew it was something else. Then there was the trucker who offered me a ride. He seemed nice, talking about our routes, sharing tips about the best places to stop. One minute we were chatting, and the next, he just vanished from the cab. I looked around, confused. I felt my heart race. I pulled over to gather my thoughts. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Was I losing it? Did I imagine him? After those encounters, I noticed something odd. There were unmarked vehicles that seemed to follow me on the road. I'd glance in my mirror and see headlights trailing me. When I switched lanes, they'd disappear. It made my skin crawl. I felt like I was being watched. Maybe I was paranoid. Or maybe there was something out there I couldn't see. Lately, I've been wondering if those truckers were trying to warn me about something. Maybe they knew a danger lurked out there. I felt uneasy every time I got behind the wheel. Even now, as I drive home on long stretches of highway, I glance into the fog, half expecting to see a familiar face watching me. Just the other night, pulling into another rest stop, I heard a voice behind me. "Why are you out here alone?" I whipped around, my heart pounding. There was nobody there. I stood frozen, trying to catch my breath. Who said that? My skin felt cold, and I just wanted to go home. But the road was still ahead, dark and full of whispers, and I knew I wasn't alone. I got back on the highway, feeling that familiar unease settle in my bones. Every passing car felt like a reminder of the strange things I'd seen. My eyes were glued to the road, but I couldn't shake the voice from my mind. "Why are you out here alone?" It echoed like a warning. I had to keep moving, but I felt trapped in a loop of fear. As night fell, shadows stretched across the asphalt. I pulled into a familiar diner. It was a worn-out place where truckers came to rest and share tales over greasy plates. The neon sign buzzed overhead, flickering like it was alive. I parked and stepped inside, hoping to chatter with someone and shake my nerves. The waitress greeted me with a smile. I ordered a coffee and sat by a window. Just as I settled into my seat, the door swung open. A trucker walked in, drenched in the kind of fear I recognized. His hands shook as he wiped his forehead. He caught my eye and sat across from me without introduction. "You didn't see anything strange on the road tonight, did you?" he asked. Instinctively, I shook my head. But I felt the truth bubble in my throat. "Actually, yeah. Some weird stuff has been happening to me as well." I hesitated but decided to share my experiences. The first encounter, the ghost stories, the man vanishing. As I spoke, his facial expression shifted from skepticism to outright worry. "I knew it," he said, eyes darting around. It's been happening to more of us. There is something out there. Something hunting. His voice dropped to a whisper. They blend in with the shadows. You may not see them, but they see you. They're looking for. He paused, as if the next word was too heavy to say. Looking for what? I pressed, feeling chills creep up my neck. He took a deep breath. Drivers. They want us. And they're starting to take us one by one. The waitress brought my coffee and set it down, glancing at us. I could feel the tension in the room. What do you mean? I asked, leaning closer, my pulse racing. Who are they? He glanced at the door, then back at me. I don't know what they are. But I saw one. Right on the side of the road. He shivered. It was like a reflection, but not a reflection. More like a shadow that wasn't real, but was real. You have to be careful on those back roads. I stared at him, my heart racing. He leaned in, lowering his voice. Stay on the main highways. Do not drive alone at night. Trust me. Just as he finished, he shot out of his seat, nearly knocking over his chair. I have to go, he said, panic flashing in his eyes. He backed away, keeping his gaze on the door, and bolted out into the night. I felt stunned, my mind racing. What did I just hear? I wrapped my hands around my coffee, trying to ground myself. Was this really happening? Did I believe him? I looked around, taking in my surroundings, hearts pounding from a mixture of fear and disbelief. That's when I noticed it. A figure standing outside in the dark, watching the diner from behind a lamppost. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, and it was gone. I sat there, staring at the spot where the figure had been. My heart raced, and I fought to convince myself it was just a trick of the light. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The trucker's words echoed in my mind, they're looking for drivers. A chill ran down my spine, and I suddenly felt very alone. I took a sip of my coffee, and the warmth barely reached me. I needed to leave. I didn't want to stick around and become part of some strange story. I glanced back at the door, still expecting it to swing open. What would come in next? I decided it was now or never. I stood up, paid for my coffee, and stepped into the cool night air. The lot was empty, save for my car. As I walked toward it, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see that figure again. I climbed into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and started the engine. The comforting hum felt isolated against the silence of the night. I turned on the headlights and slowly pulled out of the diner's parking lot. As I eased back onto the highway, I peered into the darkness. The road stretched ahead, illuminated only by my headlights. I focused on the road, trying to calm my thoughts. Just stay on track. Don't think about anything else. The miles passed, but the unease didn't fade. The trucker had lingered in my mind. What had he seen? I wanted to dismiss his fears, but the way he had looked it felt too real. Just as I was about to convince myself to shake it off, headlights appeared behind me. A truck was gaining on me fast. I glanced in the rearview mirror, tension tightening in my throat. The truck bore down on me, closer than it should have been, as if it was destined to catch up like it was hunting. My instinct screamed at me to speed up. I pressed the gas pedal, but it felt as if the truck rose with me, refusing to stay behind. Panic surged as I picked up speed. Despite the distance growing between us, the truck remained close. A sickening twist in my stomach warned me I should get off the road. I glanced to my right, and there it was again, the shadow. It flickered at the edge of my vision, as if it was waiting for me, hovering just beyond the borders of my headlights. My heart raced faster. Where had I seen it before? Suddenly, the truck's horn blared, a sharp sound cutting through the night like a weapon. The noise sent jolts of adrenaline through me. I glanced back and noticed something odd. The driver wasn't looking forward. His head was turned, and he seemed focused on something in his passenger seat. A knot formed in my throat. Was he seeing what I had seen? I needed to make a decision. I veered into a diner rest area a few miles ahead, desperate to escape whatever this was. I parked and sat in silence. The truck roared past, its shadow sliding past me. I felt a weight lift, if only briefly. But just as relief washed over me, I spotted movement. Someone emerged from the woods lining the rest area, a figure wrapped in darkness, blending seamlessly with the night. It stopped and stared. I couldn't breathe. The diner's porch light flickered, revealing nothing but an empty space. That's when I realized it was coming for me. My hands shook as I turned the ignition. I had to get out. I had to drive. I slammed the car door and yanked the gear into drive, adrenaline flooding my system. I had to move. Fast. The headlights illuminated the dark stretch of road ahead, but their glow felt weak against the lurking night. I couldn't shake the image of the figure. It had been watching me. As I sped back onto the highway, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. The road was clear behind me, but my chest tightened with every second. Had the truck passed the rest area? Or was it still out there, trailing me? The night was heavy with silence, and fear coiled around my throat. Then the headlights appeared again, gaining on me once more. I didn't need to look back to know it was the same truck. I pressed the gas harder, willing my little sedan to push beyond its limits. But the rumble of the truck kept pace, a monster lingering in the shadows. An idea hit me: I could try to escape on an exit. A sensation of panic gripped me as I spotted a sign for a small town just ahead. I could use a familiar space, somewhere that felt less lost. I made the turn off the highway, my tires screeching against the asphalt. The town was dark, its contours barely visible in the faint light of flickering street lamps. I drove through quiet streets, hoping to lose the truck in the maze of buildings. I found an alley and turned into it, steering sharply to park behind an old store. I killed the engine, praying that the shadows would mask me. With my heart pounding, I shifted in my seat to catch a glimpse of the street outside. A moment felt like an eternity. Would the truck just drive by? Then I heard the rumble of the engine growing closer. My breath caught in my throat as headlights swept across the alley. I ducked down, heart racing. The truck cruised slowly, its weight pressing into the ground like a predator stalking its prey. I could barely breathe, waiting for it to pass. But it didn't. It stopped. I could hear nothing above the thumping in my ears, but my instincts kicked in. A knot twisted in my stomach. Had I been seen? And then I heard a faint sound, almost like a laugh, coming from the direction of the truck. The engine idled. The driver's door opened, and footsteps echoed against the pavement. I didn't dare move, only peered through the crack in my window. A man emerged from the shadows, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket that could blend him into the night. He leaned against the truck, looking around. Whatever he was searching for felt menacing. My heart raced violently, driving my thoughts wild. Just when I thought he might turn away, he glanced in my direction. I held my breath, frozen in place. He was looking right at me, and the darkness that cloaked him didn't seem to flicker. In that moment, I thought of the trucker's warning. They're looking for drivers. I wasn't safe. I was a target. Before I could fully process the situation, I heard another noise, a rustling from the other side of the alley. Someone else was there. I craned my neck, and that's when I saw a figure moving out of the darkness, slipping behind the store. I couldn't tell who or what it was, but I knew one thing: I was no longer alone. Then, everything went dark. When I came to, my heart was still pounding, but the immediate sound of the truck had vanished. The alley was engulfed in a thick silence, and the only noise was the rustle of leaves in the night breeze. I pressed my palms to the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe deeply. What had just happened? Had I passed out? I blinked hard, trying to shake off the fog that clouded my mind. Slowly, I reached for my phone on the passenger seat. It lit up, and I checked the time. Nearly 30 minutes had slipped away since I parked. I quickly glanced through the alley's narrow opening. The truck was still there, but the man was gone. My stomach churned. I needed to know what was happening. A surge of bravery fueled my movements as I opened the door just a crack. I listened closely for any sounds of footsteps, voices, anything that could give away the presence of danger. Nothing. Just the stillness of the night. I forced myself to step out of the car, every instinct screaming at me to get back inside. I made my way to the edge of the alley, peering into the darkness of the street. The truck was parked, but I could see the driver's door slightly ajar, moving in the wind like an open gateway to uncertainty. I scanned the surroundings, desperate for any sign of movement. Then, I heard it again, a rustling sound, this time more pronounced. It came from behind the store where that other figure had slipped into the shadows. My heart raced as I turned. That was when I noticed something lying on the ground at my feet. A black object. I bent down cautiously and picked it up. A knife. The blade glinted eerily in the faint streetlight. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be happening. Panic inching up my throat, I dropped the knife and stumbled back. What was going on in this town? Who was the man in the truck? A sudden noise broke through my thoughts. The truck's engine roared back to life. I turned my head just in time to see the headlights flick on, casting an ominous glow across the alley. The truck was moving. I was still standing too close to the street. I dove back into the safety of the shadows, pressing myself against the cool brick wall. The truck rumbled past, its tires rumbling against the pavement as it turned onto the street ahead. My heart raced as I peered out, watching it disappear around a corner. But then I remembered the figure from before, the one who had slipped behind the store. I had to know if they were still here. I waited a moment longer, listening for any sound that might give me a hint. Then, as I took a cautious step forward, I heard a soft voice. "Hey!" I froze. Instinctively, my body tensed, and I felt the heat of panic rising again. "Are you okay?" The voice was close, too close. I turned slowly, my eyes scanning the darkness. I couldn't see much, but I sensed someone was there, hidden in the shadows. "Who is there?" I called out, my voice shaking slightly. The figure stepped into the faint light. A woman, her hair tousled and her clothes disheveled, appeared before me. Relief washed over me, but a knot still twisted in my stomach. "Please, you need to leave," she said urgently, stepping closer. "They'll be back." I opened my mouth to ask who they were, but before I could, a deep rumble caught my attention. My heart sank as I turned to see headlights approaching again. This time, I didn't know if I could hide. I glanced at the woman, the urgency in her voice clawing at my senses. "What do you mean they'll be back?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Before she could answer, the headlights drew closer, illuminating the alley like a spotlight. I could feel the adrenaline surging through my veins, the instinct to flee battling against the need for answers. "Quick!" she hissed, pulling my arm. I didn't resist as she led me further into the shadows behind the store. My mind raced, sharp questions thrumming inside me, but I didn't want to make any noise. The rumble of the truck engine grew louder as it approached, drowning out my thoughts. I peered around the corner, my breath hitching in my throat. The truck slowly rolled past the alley but didn't stop. I hoped it wouldn't notice us, but I could see the driver scanning the area. "Do you know who they are?" I whispered to her. She shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "They're not like us," she said. "Just grab whatever you can from the car and let us go." The truck rolled further down the street. I had to act fast. "I'll go back," I said. "I'll be quick." "I can't lose you too," she insisted, her grip tightening. "I'll be right back," I promised. I could feel her gaze boring into me, but time was running out. I took a deep breath and slipped back out into the night, heart pounding. I rushed to my car, my senses heightened. I quickly opened the door and started rummaging through the glove compartment, throwing things aside until I found my small backpack. The sound of footsteps echoed from the street, and I froze, my breath catching. "Come on." The woman whispered urgently from the shadows. I looked over my shoulder, trying to judge how much time I had. Then I heard her gasp. I turned just in time to see a dark figure emerging from the shadows, another man tall, with a cap pulled low over his eyes. His posture was relaxed, but the menace radiating from him made my skin crawl. "What are you doing here?" he called out, his voice gravelly. I grabbed my bag and dashed back toward the shadows, but the woman was gone. I spun around, panic setting in as I searched the darkness for her. "Where are you?" "Over here," she hissed from a deeper part of the alley. I followed the sound, but when I reached her, she was trembling. "They're looking for something," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "We need to go now." I steadied her shoulder. "But what are they looking for?" She looked at me, eyes wide but serious. "I think it's us." The realization hit me hard, and just as I opened my mouth to respond, the sound of an engine echoed behind us. This time, it was louder, more menacing. Someone was coming. "We can't stay here," I shouted, panic rising again. "Just run," she urged. We dashed deeper into the shadows, but my mind raced. The truck was their vehicle. Were we some kind of target? Then everything shifted again, a distant shout, the headlights of the truck shining through the alley darkness once more. "Don't let them see us," the woman warned, pulling me closer to a wall. My heart battered against my ribs as I pressed against her, but a part of me was already wondering if we could outrun whatever it was that was hunting us. That was when I heard the first voice again. "They went this way." We were trapped. We stumbled further into the darkness, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Panic flared as I heard the sound of heavy steps closing in from both directions. My mind raced. Where was the safest place to go? The alley twisted ahead, filled with shadows that seemed alive. "Over here," I heard the woman whisper urgently, pulling me toward a small door set into the brick wall. I hesitated, but there was no time to question. We pushed inside, a musty stench enveloping us as I shut the door quietly behind us. It was a storage room filled with old crates and rusting equipment. My heart pounded in my ears as I tried to catch my breath. "What if they find us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They won't," she replied, scanning the dark corners of the room. "At least, not if we stay quiet." "Do you know what they want?" The question slipped from my lips, heavy in the stale air. "Whatever it is, it's not good," she said, her voice low. "They're not just looking for random people. They're hunting." I swallowed hard. Hunting for what? Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the door. The door handle rattled gently, and my heart stuttered. We pressed against the wall, holding our breath. "Check over there," a voice ordered. "We can't be far off." The footsteps moved away, but a chill swept through me. They were searching, actively hunting us. My mind swirled. Was it about the woman? Or was I somehow caught up in this chaos? "What do we do?" I whispered again. "Wait." Her eyes glinted in the dim light, filled with something determined. "We need to get out of here, but we can't risk being seen." Footsteps returned, lingering near the door as the voices grew louder. "I swear I saw them go in here." The girl had dark hair. I exhaled softly. I felt her panic, but I also sensed her resolve. She was gauging the situation, waiting for the right moment to act. Suddenly, a loud crash resounded from a different part of the storage room. It sounded like metal clanging against concrete. The voices outside perked up at the noise. Over there. One of them shouted, followed by a scramble of footsteps. Now. She hissed, pulling me toward a rusty fire exit that had been half hidden behind a pile of crates. I could feel the heat of uncertainty, but there wasn't time to think. I pushed against the door, and it creaked open, revealing night air that was both liberating and ominous. We slipped through just as the door burst open behind us. They escaped. I heard someone scream, the frustration palpable in their voice. My heart raced again, and I shared a glance with the woman filled with fear and determination. Run! We sprinted into a nearby alley, the sounds of pursuit fading behind us. But just as we turned a corner, I spotted something on the ground, a small silver object glimmering in the darkness. I stopped abruptly, fear flooding back. That's when I saw it. A keychain, engraved with a logo I'd seen before, a strange symbol that never should have crossed my path. I reached down and picked up the keychain, its cool metal sending a jolt of recognition through me. The symbol was familiar, it matched the one I'd seen on the truck parked outside that diner last month. The moment I realized this, a rush of unease coursed through me. What was the connection? Come on. The woman urged, her voice breaking through my thoughts. She grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the ground. I hesitated for just a second longer, weighing the urge to investigate against the need to escape. But when I saw the flash of headlights round the corner, I made up my mind. Okay, let us go. I shoved the keychain into my pocket as we darted away. We rounded another corner and slipped onto a wider street. The frantic rush of adrenaline still coursed through me, but I felt a strange tether pulling me back to that keychain. It didn't make sense. Why was it so important? Do you know where we're going? I asked, attempting to block out the persistent anxiety creeping into my mind. I'm looking for a good place to hide, she said, scanning the street. There weren't many options. Just rows of buildings, some lit from inside with flickering lights, one or two closed for the night. Somewhere they want to think to look, I added, my breath hitching slightly. She nodded, quickening her pace. Just then, a sound pierced the stillness, a low rumble. I paused, swiveling around to find a large truck rumbling down the street. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating everything in their path before they disappeared beyond a cluster of trees. That's not good, I whispered, anxiety tightening in my chest. We need to keep moving, she insisted. But her urgency heightened mine. I felt like we were running on borrowed time. Then I noticed something strange. The truck came to a halt just a few yards away, the engine idling, almost waiting. My curiosity pricked at me, leading my eyes back to the keychain in my pocket. Wait, I said suddenly, recalling the diner and the truck driver who'd given me a knowing look. What if that truck? But before I could finish, the side door of the truck swung open, and a figure jumped out. I barely had time to register the tattoos slithering up his arms before he started walking toward us, boots crunching against the pavement. Stay close, the woman whispered, her protective instinct kicking in. There was fear in her eyes, and suddenly, the weight of my own dread surged back. Hey! The man called out, his voice low yet commanding. You girls lost? I felt the tension in the air thicken. We're fine, I said, my throat dry. But my heart was racing, screaming at me to run. He took another step closer, studying us with an unsettling intensity. You sure? It's not safe out here at this hour. I could sense the woman next to me tightening her grip. We really need to go, she said, her voice strained. At that moment, everything seemed to shift. The thrill of escape fizzled, replaced by a gnawing dread. Do you work for them? I blurted out before I could think better of it. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Who asked them, sweetheart? Before I could respond, the air crackled as a second truck pulled into view, its headlights cutting through the night. A chill settled in my stomach. The man's expression darkened. Looks like you've got company. I felt the ground drop beneath me. What had I just stepped into? My heart raced as the second truck pulled closer, and I could hear the faint thump of the bass from the music blaring inside. The driver leaned out, his silhouette framed by the harsh light, scanning the street. I could feel sweat trickling down my back. "Run!" the woman hissed, pulling me along as the man's demeanor shifted, teeth gritted. We sprinted down the street, adrenaline pushing us forward. I focused on the rhythm of my feet against the pavement, fighting the urge to look back. But I couldn't help it. I glanced over my shoulder, catching the man opening his mouth to shout something as the other truck rolled to a stop. "Where?" I gasped, desperate to find any safe haven. "Over there," she yelled, pointing at a dark alleyway. The shadows beckoned like a hidden refuge, but fear clawed at me. Would it be any safer? We ducked into the alley, pressing against the cool, damp bricks, our breaths coming in short, frantic gasps. My heart was pounding so loud, it drowned out the distant sounds of the trucks. I peered around the corner, watching the man stomp toward the first truck, his posture radiating irritation. "Why are they looking for us?" I whispered, feeling the weight of her gaze. "Must be something you saw," she said, her brow furrowing. "We need to figure this out." This was all spiraling out of control, and I felt the knot in my stomach twist deeper. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, urgency in her eyes. "That keychain. It's linked to something bigger. I think they know about it." "But why me?" I protested, feeling a lump form in my throat. I was just a bystander, caught in a web I didn't understand. "Sometimes it just happens," she replied, the shadows adding a weight to her words. "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time." I opened my mouth to respond, but the jarring sound of a truck door slamming caught my attention. Panic surged through me as I caught sight of the men giving each other signals as they approached the alley. "Close your mouth," she hissed, grabbing my arm tighter. The alley felt suffocating. I was aware of every stain on the bricks, every sound echoing in the confined space. They were getting closer, and instinct kicked in. I had to find a way out. Then, from the shadows, I noticed a small fire escape leading to the roof. "Over there." I pointed eagerly. Without waiting for her response, I sprinted toward the metal ladder, my heart thrumming wildly. She followed, helping me climb up quickly. Once we reached the top, we crouched behind the ridge, bodies trembling as we peeked down. The men were now at the entrance to the alley. One of them spoke into a radio. "They're here somewhere. Keep looking." I felt nausea creep in. They were hunting us. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, something caught my eye, a glint from the keychain in my pocket. My fingers brushed against it, and that familiar pang of recognition hit me again. "That S when I saw it," I murmured, a flash of clarity breaking through my panicked thoughts. The engravings on the keychain. They weren't just symbols, they were coordinates. "We can use this," I said, turning to the woman beside me. "What do you mean?" "They lead somewhere. We need to figure this out fast." But as I met her questioning gaze, I knew one thing for sure: we weren't safe yet. And uncovering the truth might just put us in even more danger. The night melted away into the dawn, but the danger didn't fade alongside it. As we crouched on the rooftop, the shadows began to peel away, revealing a small town drenched in sunlight. It felt surreal, this ordinary morning juxtaposed against the chaos we just escaped. The keychain pulsed in my pocket, reminding me of our urgent need to get moving, or risk being caught. "They're still down there," I whispered, peering over the edge. The men stood with the trucks, voices low yet severe, strategizing their next move. Where could they have gone? "They couldn't have vanished," one of them said, frustration evident in his tone. "Keep looking. They must be nearby." My pulse quickened. If they caught us, we might not get another chance to escape. I glanced toward the street, wide and inviting yet brimming with potential danger. The thought of leaving the safety of this rooftop nagged at me, but I knew we couldn't stay hidden forever. "We need to get to the diner," I said. "I think I have an idea." The diner had been a ground zero of sorts where we might find clues or perhaps even allies among the truckers. I shared my thoughts with the woman, who nodded, her determination fueling my resolve. Taking a breath, I motioned for her to follow me. We began our descent, careful and deliberate, using the fire escape to slip into the alley. Heart pounding, I led the way, hoping we wouldn't run into anyone. As we cautiously made our way onto the street, adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I kept a lookout for any signs of life. The diner loomed ahead, a beacon of familiarity. It seemed like an age since I had sat in there, sipping coffee and sharing stories. I wondered if it would bring us the answers we desperately needed or if it would just be another trap. We ducked behind parked cars, maneuvering with the stealth of hunted prey, casting wary glances back at the trucks, which now appeared to have gone silent. Maybe the men were regrouping, assessing their losses. Whatever the case, we needed to capitalize on this moment of uncertainty. "Stick close," I urged, and we darted toward the diner's entrance, pushing through the front door. The bell jingled above us, sounding more welcoming than I expected, but the room was still empty save for a waitress wiping down tables and the man behind the counter. They both looked up, surprise marking their faces. "What are you two doing here?" the waitress asked, brow furrowed. "It's dangerous out there." "It's a long story," I said, catching my breath. "We need help." Those men outside. Before I could finish, the diner door swung open, and my heart sank. The tall man from last night stepped in, a predatory gleam in his eye. Instinctively pushing the woman behind me, I braced for confrontation. He surveyed the open diner, smirking as his gaze zeroed in on us. "There you are," he said, his voice dripping with bravado. "I hope you weren't too comfortable." The waitress instinctively took a step back, but I held my ground. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, my voice a mix of fear and anger. "What do you want from us?" He chuckled softly. "It's simple, really. You're in possession of something that holds significant value." His eyes flicked to my pocket, a knowing glint flashing. "That keychain. You see, it ties you to something much larger than you can comprehend." My heart dropped. Every question I'd asked echoed in my mind, but right now, survival was priority. "We're not afraid of you," I snapped, mustering courage. "Oh, you should be," he said, stepping closer. "We're not the only ones who want it. You've unknowingly become entangled in something far beyond your mundane lives. And now you'll wish you hadn't." With adrenaline surging again, I grabbed the woman's hand, and we bolted toward a side exit. The moment the door banged open, the shouts of the man behind us echoed in the diner, demanding we stop. We flew into the alley, each instinct urging us to run faster. The men from the truck surged out behind us, and I could hear the pounding of their feet, the urgency of the moment propelling our hearts. "Where do we go?" she gasped. Breathless. "Back the way we came," I suggested. Curiosity and instinct blended together. I couldn't shake the thought that the keychain led to something crucial. As we ran, desperation drove me to the back of the diner where we initially escaped. There I noticed another door, a loading dock. Wasting no time, I pulled it open, and we slipped inside. I had no idea where it led, but it felt like our only option. Inside lay darkness and the faint glow of light filtering through cracks in the walls. My heart raced as we moved further into the unknown, forging ahead with no plan and little time. The noise from the diner's back door burst open, voices shouting our names. "We can't go back," I said, pushing ahead. My voice felt hollow in the oppressive silence. "Wait," she called, pausing at an intersection of narrow corridors. "This could be a trap. We don't know where this leads us. But we can't just stand here." Another voice echoed, closer. "They're right behind us." At that moment, I remembered the keychain felt like a breadcrumb trailing into the dark. The keychain, I said suddenly. It might show us the way, it might have something to do with whatever they're after. The woman nodded, eyes wide. We turned to a dimly lit corridor ending at a heavy door. When I pulled it open, a rush of cool air hit us, tangled with the scent of something ancient. There were markings along the walls, drawings that felt like echoes of memories. This. I whispered. The engravings matched the ones on the keychain, the delicate symbols etched into the surface. We were onto something. But before I could process this, a raucous round of laughter and shouts echoed behind us, reminding us our pursuers were still on our heels. Go. I urged, and we pressed deeper into unknown territory. This has to lead us somewhere, I said, pulling her along. Maybe it's our chance to escape. In the back of my mind, remnants of unease lingered. The allure of uncovering the truth weighed heavily against the fear of the unknown. Could this lead to a resolution, or would it expose us to even darker realities? As the door swung shut behind us, the darkness enveloped us. We shook hands around the sharp edge of possibility, but one thing remained clear: we were no longer simply running away. We were purposefully seeking out a truth that, in the back of our minds, felt like we might never fully understand. Would we find answers in this hidden place, or would we become the next shadows lurking in the night? All I knew was the road ahead was uncertain, and in this labyrinth of secrets, the line between hunter and hunted had begun to blur.